Thank you, David. I bring you greetings on behalf of Governor Cooper, but you'll see him tomorrow. You mentioned network. You know, there's a couple of people here that in our previous legacy or the time we existed, network meant interconnection agreements, and it meant switches, Lucent 5E switches, and all these things. So there's a couple of people I want to mention here today. Linda Cheatham, Assistant Secretary, and I knew her from the telecommunications days, and that's why we're talking about networks. And Tom Rayburn, who's our chairman of the NCWorks Commission. And they have been very instrumental in growing North Carolina and growing employment in the past. But what I want to talk about is, we talk about, I heard you say also, you know, we're in the middle of a disruptive economy. We will have a perpetual disruptive economy, and that's where you're so important. When Governor Cooper took office in 2017, and we were looking at the Department of Commerce, and of course, everyone loves the glamour of job announcements and the like. But also, we also know that every economic development project, the first thing that's important is workforce. No company is going anywhere where they expect the workforce to fall out of an airplane. And that's where you come into being. Where are we today? Let's talk about where we are. Almost 60,000 new jobs since 2017. Basically at full employment. Technically, it's 4.1% unemployment today, what you would see. We're looking at that and analyzing it. While some of it may be anecdotal, I think we would say that, you know, the national economy is 3.7. Ours is attributable because we're one of the things, we are heavily dependent on trade. If we look at our economy, the tariffs with China alone are affecting us. Pre-tariff, we were selling $140 million a year of tobacco to China. Today we're selling zero. That's a significant thing, which also affects our gross state product. I'm going to digress for a minute to talk about where North Carolina is. We talk about unemployment. We're basically at full employment. We have a gross state product of over $500 billion, which is larger than Sweden. So if the trade minister of Sweden was speaking with you, you'd be a lot more impressed than the Secretary of Commerce. California is $3 trillion, to put it in perspective. South Carolina, less than $200 billion. Virginia, $400 billion. So we are a significant state. When people compare us to South Carolina, I think if you look at our population is 10 million people here now. We're the 9th most populous state in the country. If one compares us, South Carolina is not quite 5 million people. So we are it's an exceptional time to be a North Carolinian. 55,000 new jobs, approaching 60,000 new jobs. 50% of our residents are non-native. And we're growing by a city that's about the size of High Point every year. But we've transformed our economy from one based on horsepower to gigabits and megabytes. I had a previous tenure at Commerce, as David just said, when Governor Easley took office, and I came in on the eve of the Pilitex bankruptcy. It was a whole different story. In 2003, we were looking at double-digit unemployment, and we had the most plant closures and lost more manufacturing jobs than any other state in the country. All of you know it. I went back and looked at the WARN notices that were being issued in the first 5 years of this century. There was unemployment attributable just to WARN notices of over 30,000 people a year. The last time, I think it may have ticked up some now, that I looked at North Carolina, we were averaging about 2,000 layoffs pursuant to WARN notices a year. But one of the things that we're looking at the Department of Commerce is, and with you and NCWorks and with DES and the like, is that we're going to try to make us all one wraparound strategy as we move forward. And we're integrated together and moving forward. Commerce can work on finding the jobs. We can work on infrastructure. You can help place those people and help companies succeed. As we had talked about before, no company's going anywhere where they can't find the employees. So we're creating the jobs of the future is what we're trying to do. Rather than, we're going to be involved with rapid response and layoffs, but going from 30,000 to 2,000, deploying these assets for the jobs of the future is imperative. And I'll talk about that again in just a second. There are some things, though, that aren't perhaps as rosy as we would like for them to be right now. I talked about the tariffs affecting just tobacco alone, and 20% of our economy is based on manufacturing. As many of you know, we received warning notices recently that Continental Tire will be shuttering their plant in Henderson County, and Daimler Freightliner will be laying off close to 1,000 people in Cleveland and Mount Holly. You know, one of our first things we look at when we look at is trucking is usually an indication of what's to bear with the economy moving forward. So we'll keep an eye on that. You know, even though we're at full employment and we're very robust, we always remember what Mark Twain said. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So we'll wait and see. But I will say, you know, since I've been in this office in 2017, I continue to meet with the Wall Street editorial boards, and every quarter they tell me the recession started, and then we see the stock market spiral to new highs. So we'll keep our fingers crossed. But there are signs that things are slowing down. We hope it'll be not a big crash, but I hope just a minor slowdown. We're also looking at what CEOs are looking for with talent. It's been estimated that 67% of all jobs will need a post-secondary education by 2025. That's not just advanced degrees, but most jobs of the future will require more skills than high school alone can provide. As we're seeing companies with upskilling is also a major thing that has to happen, the companies that are succeeding. There's some companies in the triangle that some of their employees spend at least 1 week a month in training and upskilling. I think that's the way of the future of what's going to happen. What are employers facing today? Of course, it's a labor shortage. But what are we doing about it, and where do we stand? You know, if you look at other states in the country and look at us, we are growing a workforce. We're probably better situated facing this full employment than many other states. I was at Mitsubishi Bank about a month ago, and they've recently announced they're moving some operations to Charlotte. They're the 5th largest bank in the world. The top 4 banks are Chinese, by the way. And they said, if you're looking at financial services for a global expansion, you have to look at North Carolina because of our workforce. We're graduating, the UNC system alone graduated 56,000 people last year. Our public universities at any given moment right now have nearly 250,000 people enrolled, and the community colleges have over 700,000 people enrolled. That's one of the reasons that companies are looking at us. Think of some of the companies we've announced just in the last year. I'll just give you illustrative. The global companies looking at us. I'll start with one of the grand prizes is Honeywell's corporate headquarters moved from New Jersey to Charlotte. Over 800 people with average salaries of $348,000 a year. Xerox just located to Raleigh. Merck just invested $700 million in Durham for a new vaccine plant. Corning invested about 700 people in Durham also making their pharmaceutical grade glass. And what we worked with them, they've got 1 million square feet of distribution in Tarboro, spreading out. They're just some of the companies that we have gotten in the last year, and we're continuing to have a pipeline. While we see it perhaps slowing down, it is still a stellar pipeline. We did an unofficial survey last year of rural employers, which I thought was sort of an interesting responses that we got. 75% of them that are seeking employees get no applicants, to show you what the workforce shortage is. So while we talk about, of course we need new companies and new jobs, your job is one of the most important ones to help placing employees in these companies. By 2030, we're aiming to have 2 million people, 25 to 44-year-olds, in post-secondary degrees and credentials. Today, to 1.3 million. We have one of the highest percentages in the country of people that have post-secondary degrees, and we're continuing to work on that. That's another reason that we're a prime state for expansions. But let me talk about a couple of the things that we're doing that are innovative, and you're dependent on us helping that. One of the things is Ramp East, the Regional Advanced Manufacturing Pipeline. They're working with 10 community colleges today to develop a curriculum for 3,000 new employees that's going to be in the Nash, Edgecombe, Wilson County area. We're seeing that that's what they're going to need with retirements and the new companies that are located there, which includes Triangle Tire, Corning, and Bridgestone. NC Careers, which funded partially by J.P. Morgan Chase. That's a collaborative effort between the Department of Public Instruction, the community colleges, NC Commerce, and the independent colleges. So there'll be a technology windshield that students can actually experience what jobs will be like and be able to select. Finish line grants. Governor Cooper initiated finish line grants with the community colleges to allow people in their last few semesters at community colleges, if they have critical needs and perhaps they have some hard times finishing, to pay for those. One of the other things, Maureen, that we should look at and we should continue to is perhaps looking at drastically reduced tuitions for community colleges. What we're seeing is some of the counties actually are doing that now. There are a few counties that are actually subsidizing or in some ways providing free tuition for students that are entering community colleges. I believe we can continue to work to do that. Something else that may seem rather trivial, but so far as to working with Dr. Hans and Maureen and the little, you know, all of our workforce offices are located in disparate places all around town and the whole bit. We're trying to move as many as we can onto the campuses, perhaps, of community colleges, so that it's a one-stop shop, and the optics are going to be what we think they should be. That won't be an immediate thing, but it's something that I think that I would like to do, and I think that Dr. Hans would like to do, and we've been talking to some community colleges with, it's been received well. In conclusion, I must say that this is an exceptional time to be a North Carolinian, probably an exceptional time to be an American. You know, part of what you do, helping people find jobs and satisfy their aspirations, help people enjoy a world perhaps larger than the one they were born into, is a critical thing. I was thinking about on the way here, you know, America is a very fragile fraternity of people from disparate backgrounds, disparate incomes and the like, that has been held together. I think what you do every day, helping people with careers, and with that, helps keep that together. Thank you.